The station pulsed with noise, metal shrieks from departing trains, a tide of voices surging toward exits and platforms. Everyone seemed to know where they belonged. Everyone except Lena Carter. She stood at the edge of the crowd, clutching a faded canvas tote against her chest. The air smelled of wet concrete and exhaustion. Her hair clung damply to her cheeks. She tried to breathe, but each inhale carried the weight of the day. 6 hours waiting tables for customers who never saw her, a race across town to make it here in time, and one fragile hope stitched together by desperation. The last train to downtown waited at platform 6. If she boarded now, she'd arrive just in time for the interview that could change everything. $45,000 a year, health insurance, a doorway out of the narrow life she'd been fighting to escape. Out of the basement apartment she shared with her younger sister, Maya. Out of the endless counting of coins at night. The loudspeaker crackled overhead. "Final boarding call, Downtown Express." Lena gripped her tote tighter, knuckles white. She took a step toward the platform, then froze. Across the crowd, an old man sat slumped on a wooden bench, shoulders shaking under a drenched wool coat. His skin had the waxy sheen of sickness. One trembling hand clutched his chest. His lips moved without sound. His eyes, clouded, frantic, met hers. No one stopped. People swerved around him, their umbrellas angled like armor. The world rushed forward, indifferent. Lena's pulse thundered. She looked from the man to the train doors, still open, beckoning. She could make it if she ran. She could save herself, her sister, the fragile plans taped to the refrigerator at home. Or she could stay. The station lights flickered. The smell of rain thickened in the air. Somewhere deep inside her, a voice whispered the question that had haunted her for years. What kind of person do you want to be when no one's watching? The man's hand slipped from his chest. His body sagged sideways. "Hey!" Lena dropped her tote and ran. She knelt beside him, knees cold against the soaked concrete. His breath came in short, shallow bursts, eyes glassy with fear. "You're okay," she said, though her voice trembled. "You're not alone. I'm here." Her fingers fumbled for her phone. 911, Union Station, elderly man, chest pains. He's conscious, barely. Please hurry. The dispatcher's voice was calm, practiced, promising help. Behind her, the train doors hissed shut. The engine rumbled. Then silence, except for the rain and the man's ragged gasps. A shift, chaos dissolving into stillness. Lena loosened his collar, pressed a hand to his shoulder. "Stay with me, sir. What's your name?" His lips parted. "Arthur," he rasped. "I was meeting someone. Important." His eyes darted toward the glass towers beyond the station, then clouded again. "I can't remember." "It's all right," Lena said softly. "You don't need to remember. Just breathe." The sirens wailed faintly in the distance, relief mixed with dread. She'd missed the train, missed her one shot. The thought tried to claw its way in, but she pushed it aside. Arthur's hand gripped hers with surprising strength. "Don't leave," he whispered. "I won't." Another tonal turn, fear shifting to resolve. The paramedics arrived, a blur of blue jackets and urgency. They slid oxygen under his nose, lifted him gently onto a stretcher. "Family?" one asked. "No," Lena said. "Just someone who stopped." "Ride's fine," the woman said, nodding toward the ambulance. "He's asking for you." Inside, the world narrowed to the hum of the engine and the steady beeping of machines. Arthur's breathing steadied. His eyes fluttered open, finding hers. "Thank you," he whispered, voice thin as thread. Lena held his hand tighter. "You're safe now." Through the window, the city blurred. Wet lights, streaked glass, lives moving on without her. Her phone buzzed again, the company's number flashing across the screen. She silenced it. By the time they reached the hospital, her interview was already over. She followed as they wheeled Arthur into the fluorescent maze, stopping only when a nurse blocked her path. "You can wait here," the nurse said gently. The waiting room smelled of antiseptic and loneliness. Lena sat in a plastic chair, damp clothes clinging to her skin. The hum of the vending machine filled the silence. On her phone, a missed call, then another, messages unsent. She leaned back, eyes closed. For the first time all day, she let herself feel it, the exhaustion, the ache, the small, stubborn peace. She'd done what she could, even if it cost her everything. 2 hours later, a doctor appeared. "Are you with Mr. Hayes?" Lena blinked. "Arthur?" The doctor nodded. "He's stable now. Mild cardiac episode triggered by stress and new medication. He's been asking for you." When she stepped into the hospital room, Arthur looked different. Color returned to his cheeks, clarity in his gaze. He smiled weakly. "There she is," he said. "My guardian angel." "You don't owe me anything," Lena murmured. Arthur studied her face, eyes thoughtful. "Most people walked by. You didn't." Lena lowered her gaze. "I was just in the right place." "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe the right person." Their silence stretched, filled with something unspoken. Outside, the rain had eased, the city washed clean. Lena rose to leave. "I should go. My sister's waiting." Arthur nodded, but his eyes lingered on her. "You gave up something for me, didn't you?" She hesitated. "An interview." "At which company?" She almost smiled. "Doesn't matter now." Arthur's expression softened. "Sometimes what feels like an ending is just the beginning." His words settled over her like a quiet promise. Lena stepped into the corridor, the fluorescent lights humming overhead. Her reflection flickered in the window glass, tired, uncertain, but standing taller than before. Somewhere behind her, Arthur watched, already planning what came next. Outside, the world felt different. The air carried a hint of warmth after rain. Lena didn't know it yet, but this choice, the one that cost her everything, had already set her life on a path she couldn't imagine. And somewhere deep inside, beneath fear and fatigue, something small began to bloom, a seed of change. Morning light crept through the cracked blinds of the basement apartment, slicing the darkness into thin, uncertain lines. Lena lay awake on the worn sofa, eyes tracing the stains on the ceiling, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. The clock read 6:04. She hadn't slept. Across the room, Maya stirred beneath a pile of mismatched blankets. Her face, still half child, half woman, turned toward the wall. She didn't know yet. Didn't know her sister had missed the interview that might have saved them both. Lena swung her legs over the edge of the couch. The floor was cold under her feet. The city above felt like another world, one with doors she could never quite open. She reached for her phone. 2 missed calls, 1 voicemail. "This is Jordan from Meridian and Company. We were expecting you at 3. Unfortunately, the position's been filled." The message ended in polite finality, a soft click that cut deeper than any insult. Tonal shift, hope to hollow resignation. Lena pressed the phone against her knee, breathing slow, steady. She'd done the right thing. She had to believe that. But the numbers wouldn't change. Rent overdue, bills stacked like unspoken accusations, Maya's tuition balance waiting in red ink. In the kitchen corner, a single loaf of bread sat on the counter, half stale. Lena sliced it carefully, buttering 2 uneven pieces. When Maya woke, she'd smile, pretend everything was fine. She'd been pretending for years. "Morning," Maya mumbled, rubbing her eyes. "Morning, sunshine," Lena said softly, forcing brightness. "You've got class at 10, right?" "Yeah." Did you make it to the interview yesterday? Lena hesitated, knife hovering over the bread. Not exactly. What happened? Maya's eyes sharpened. You didn't forget, did you? No. Lena set the knife down. There was a man at the station. He collapsed. I couldn't just walk past. Maya blinked, stunned. So, you missed it? I did. Silence filled the small room, thick as fog. Then, softly, You always do this, Lena. You always save everyone but yourself. Lena didn't respond. She wrapped her arms around her knees, staring at the floor. Maya's voice softened. I'm sorry. I know you were trying to help. Lena managed a faint smile. He would have died, Maya. I couldn't leave him. I know. Maya crossed the room, placing a hand on her sister's shoulder. But who's going to save us? The question lingered, fragile and unanswerable. Later, after Maya left for class, Lena cleaned the apartment, folded laundry, wiped counters that still smelled faintly of bleach from her night job. Every gesture was small, deliberate, a way to hold back the creeping sense of failure. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, then answered. Hello? Is this Lena Carter? The voice was calm, male, slightly formal. Yes. This is Daniel Reeves. You helped my father yesterday at Union Station. Arthur Hayes. Lena froze. Is he all right? He's stable, Daniel said. You saved his life. He asked me to reach out to thank you personally. Would you be available to meet this afternoon? She hesitated. Gratitude was one thing. Pity was another. That's not necessary. Please, Daniel insisted gently. He'd like to see you. A pause. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere above, footsteps echoed through the ceiling. Lena exhaled. All right. Where? St. Mary's Hospital, room 417, 2 o'clock. When the call ended, Lena sat still, the phone heavy in her hand. Something in his tone, measured, deliberate, carried weight. Maybe this meeting wasn't about gratitude. Maybe it was about something else. Tonal shift. Weariness to curiosity. By early afternoon, she stood outside the hospital's glass doors. The air smelled of rain and antiseptic. Her reflection stared back from the pane, hair pulled into a simple braid, coat buttoned to the neck, shoes still scuffed. Nothing about her looked like a savior. She stepped inside. Arthur's room was quiet, filled with soft light. He sat propped against white pillows, color restored, a faint smile breaking across his face when he saw her. You came, he said, voice still rough but steadier now. I wanted to make sure you were okay. I am, he nodded. Thanks to you. He motioned to the chair beside him. Please, sit. She obeyed, uneasy beneath his gaze. You missed something important yesterday, he said, not as a question. Lena hesitated. An interview. Where? Meridian and Comey administrative assistant. It would have been steady work. Arthur studied her, eyes full of quiet understanding. You gave up certainty for compassion. Most people wouldn't. I didn't think about it, she admitted. I just reacted. That's exactly why it matters. He turned toward the window where gray clouds drifted like slow thoughts. Do you believe in chance, Lena? I'm not sure. Neither am I, Arthur murmured. But I know this. Sometimes the smallest choices reveal who we truly are. The door opened softly. Daniel stepped in, a tall man in a tailored coat, features sharp but kind. Dad, he said, the doctor needs you for a few minutes. Arthur nodded, then turned back to Lena. Will you wait? Please. She agreed. While he left for tests, Daniel lingered. "He hasn't stopped talking about you," he said. "Says you reminded him what matters." "I didn't do anything special." "You did," Daniel replied simply. "You stayed." Tonal shift, humility to dawning recognition. Minutes passed. Lena traced the seams of her coat, wondering why this felt different, heavier than gratitude. When Arthur returned, his expression held quiet determination. "I want to do something for you," he said. "That's not necessary. It is to me." He reached into the drawer beside his bed, withdrawing a sleek envelope. "I can't change yesterday, but I can change what comes next. Come by my office tomorrow, 10 o'clock. "Your office?" Arthur's smile deepened. "You'll see." He pressed the envelope into her hands. Inside, a simple card. Hayes Industries, embossed in silver, with his name beneath it. Lena stared at the card, her reflection faint in the glossy surface. The name tugged at something familiar. She'd seen it etched into skyscrapers downtown, printed on delivery trucks, whispered by customers at the diner. "Mr. Hayes," she began. But the words faded. He only smiled. "Sometimes, the train you miss isn't the one you were meant to take." The weight of the card in her hand felt heavier than paper, like a door waiting to open. Outside, evening stretched across the sky, pale gold melting into shadow. Lena walked home through streets still slick with rain, clutching the card in her pocket. For the first time in years, her steps felt less certain, but strangely, more alive. The world hadn't ended. It had shifted. And though she didn't yet know how, tomorrow promised something she hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. She reached her door, heart steady, eyes lifted toward the skyline where Hayes Industries glimmered in silver light. The envelope pressed against her palm like a pulse. Something was coming. Morning came with a hush of fog over the city, softening the edges of glass towers and muted the usual rush. Lena stood outside the revolving doors of Hayes Industries, her reflection ghost-like against the mirrored facade. For years, she had passed this building on her way to work, head down, invisible, another face in the city's endless blur. Today, she was stepping inside. She adjusted her thrifted blazer, smoothed her skirt, and whispered under her breath, "Just breathe." The doorman nodded politely, unaware that this ordinary woman had once saved the life of the man who built the empire above. Inside, marble floors gleamed like still water. The air carried the faint scent of citrus and polish. Everything spoke of precision, wealth, purpose. Lena felt the weight of it settle over her, like stepping into a cathedral of ambition. At the reception desk, a woman with a bright smile and brisk manner greeted her. "Good morning. Do you have an appointment?" "Yes," Lena said, holding out the card. "With Mr. Hayes." The receptionist's eyes flicked to the embossed name, then back to Lena. Her tone shifting immediately, respectful, even cautious. "One moment, please." Lena waited, pulse loud in her ears. Around her, people hurried through the lobby with folders and lattes, voices clipped with urgency. They looked like they belonged. She still wasn't sure she did. The elevator doors slid open with a quiet chime. "Mr. Hayes will see you now," the receptionist said, her voice softening. "Top floor." Tonal shift, anticipation rising through awe. The elevator climbed in silence, numbers blinking upward. Lena's reflection trembled faintly in the mirrored walls. She thought of Maya back in class, unaware that her sister was standing at the threshold of something unimaginable. The doors opened into a world of light, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river, framed by silver and oak. Arthur Hayes stood near the glass, dressed in a crisp navy suit, the faint lines of recovery still on his face. When he turned, the warmth in his eyes softened the sharpness of the room. "Lena," he said, voice steady now, richer than she remembered. "I'm glad you came." "I wasn't sure if I should," she admitted. "I was," he replied simply. "Sit, please." She obeyed, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Arthur studied her for a moment, as though seeing something beyond the surface. "I've been thinking about you since that day," he said. "About what you gave up." "I don't want anything in return," she said quickly. "I know," he said, smiling faintly. "That's what makes you different." He walked behind his desk, picked up a thin folder, and set it gently before her. "Lena, I've led this company for 50 years. I've built fortunes, signed deals, made enemies, and earned praise. But in all that time, I've rarely met someone whose instincts were purer than their ambition." She blinked, unsure how to respond. He continued, "Yesterday you acted without calculation. You didn't see power or wealth. You saw a person in need. That is a quality this world undervalues, and one I intend to honor." He opened the folder. Inside, a contract, a job offer, executive assistant to the chairman, with a salary Lena couldn't quite process. Her throat tightened. "Mr. Hayes, I'm not qualified." He shook his head. "You're more qualified than you think. Skills can be taught. Integrity cannot." She stared at the printed numbers, the benefits, the crisp signature already waiting for hers. The words blurred, swimming with disbelief. Tonal shift, hope clashing with fear. "What if I fail?" she whispered. Arthur leaned forward, eyes kind but firm. "Then you'll learn. But you won't fail for lack of courage. I've already seen that in you." She thought of Maya, the rent, the years of exhaustion, the hollow ache of always being one step behind. For the first time, the path ahead didn't feel like survival. It felt like possibility. Still, hesitation rooted her in place. "Why me?" Arthur's voice softened. "Because the company needs to remember what it's for. And I need someone who can remind me when I forget." He reached into his drawer and withdrew another envelope. "There's more. I understand your sister is in school. I'd like to establish a scholarship through our foundation. Full tuition, no conditions." Lena froze. Her breath caught, sharp as glass. "You don't have to." "I want to," Arthur interrupted gently. "Not as payment, but as recognition." Her eyes stung. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already have," he said. "You saved my life." Silence settled, soft, steady, filled with something larger than gratitude. Lena felt the walls of her old life, its limits, its quiet hunger, begin to loosen. Arthur rose, extending his hand. "Will you join me?" She stood slowly, trembling, and placed her hand in his. The handshake was firm, deliberate, an unspoken promise between two people who had crossed paths by fate and choice. Tonal shift, doubt melting into quiet resolve. "Welcome to Hayes Industries," Arthur said. Lena exhaled, the sound half laugh, half sob. "I'll do my best." "I expect nothing less," he said, smiling. As she stepped back into the elevator, the world below looked different, brighter, not easier, but changed. The contract pressed against her chest inside the folder. In her pocket, the scholarship letter waited to rewrite her sister's future. Outside, the sky had cleared. Light spilled across the streets like a benediction. But as Lena walked toward the station, a flicker of unease touched her, an awareness that stepping into power meant stepping into its shadows. The city pulsed with stories she didn't yet understand, and somewhere, beyond her sight, unseen eyes had begun to take notice. She tightened her grip on the folder. The elevator ride had carried her upward, but the real climb was only beginning. And though she didn't yet know it, The decision to trust kindness would test her in ways that kindness alone could not save. The wind lifted her hair as she crossed the street. In the glass behind her, her reflection looked different, still small, but no longer unseen. The seed Arthur had recognized was stirring to life. What would it grow into? Only time, and the cost of courage, would tell. The next morning dawned clear, the air sharpened by the night's rain. Sunlight spilled across the skyline, gilding the towers of downtown. From the window of her bus seat, Lena Carter watched the city unfold, streets she'd walked for years now gleaming as if new. She wore a navy blazer borrowed from her neighbor, pressed crisp against a pale blouse. In her lap rested the folder Arthur Hayes had given her, the edges smooth and heavy with promise. This wasn't just a job. It was a doorway she'd never imagined would open. Still, as the bus turned onto Riverside Avenue, a ripple of doubt slid through her chest. What if she didn't belong there? What if they saw through her, saw the girl who'd served coffee and scrubbed floors, not the woman stepping into the chairman's office? She pressed her palm against her knees, steadying herself. Arthur had believed in her. Maybe that could be enough. When the bus hissed to a stop, Lena stepped out into sunlight. The glass facade of Hayes Industries shimmered ahead like a mirror to her fears. She walked toward it anyway. Inside, the lobby hummed with quiet precision, polished shoes clicking across marble, voices soft and efficient. The receptionist recognized her instantly and smiled. "Good morning, Miss Carter. Mr. Hayes is expecting you." Lena nodded, breath catching in her throat as she stepped into the elevator. The doors closed, sealing her inside a rising capsule of reflection and resolve. Tonal shift, awe to trembling uncertainty. The top floor was bathed in light. Arthur's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Evelyn Shore, greeted her with a measured nod. "Welcome, Ms. Carter. Mr. Hayes is finishing a call. He asked me to get you settled." Evelyn led her through a glass corridor lined with framed photographs, black and white snapshots of construction sites, boardrooms, factory floors. The story of Hayes Industries, told in steel and sweat. "This was his first warehouse," Evelyn said, pausing before a photo of a younger Arthur standing in front of scaffolding. "Built it with his own hands." Lena studied the image. The man in the picture had the same steady eyes, though the lines of time had softened them. She wondered what it felt like to build something from nothing. In Arthur's office, sunlight spilled across polished oak and brushed metal. The city stretched below like a living map. When he turned from the window, his smile was calm, assured. "You're early," he said. "I didn't want to be late," she replied. "Good," Arthur said, gesturing toward a seat across from his desk. "Punctuality is a form of respect." She sat, hands folded carefully in her lap. "I won't lie to you," Arthur began. "This won't be easy. You'll be learning more than schedules and memos. You'll be seeing how decisions ripple beyond the boardroom." He slid a leather notebook toward her. Inside, neat handwriting filled the first page. "Observe. Listen. Learn. Ask why before how." Her throat tightened. "Thank you. I'll do everything I can to be worthy of this." Arthur's eyes softened. "You already are. That's why you're here." Tonal shift, doubt to grounding purpose. The morning unfolded in a quiet rhythm. Evelyn guided her through introductions, finance, operations, communications. Names blurred, faces smiled politely. Most greeted her with curiosity, some with cool reserve. By noon, Lena stood beside Arthur in the executive boardroom, its walls lined with glass. 12 men and women sat around the table, each with a tablet or folder, voices clipped with confidence. Arthur's entrance drew immediate attention. Conversation ceased. He began the meeting with ease, reviewing projections and initiatives. Then, halfway through, his gaze shifted toward Lena. Some of you may not know Ms. Carter, he said. She's joining as my executive assistant. She has a unique perspective I value. A murmur rippled across the room. One man, tall and sharp-featured, leaned back in his chair. His nameplate read, Gregory Miles, Chief Financial Officer. Welcome, he said, voice polite but distant. I trust you'll find our pace manageable. The words were neutral, but the undertone pricked her skin. Lena nodded, offering a small smile. I'll do my best. Good, Gregory replied, already looking back to his notes. Arthur's expression remained unreadable, but Lena caught the faint crease at his brow. As the meeting continued, Lena scribbled notes in her new journal. Phrases leapt out. Divestment strategy, quarterly forecast, philanthropic alignment. The language was foreign, but she listened intently, mapping meaning through tone and gesture. At the close, Arthur thanked everyone. As the room emptied, Gregory lingered near the door, offering a handshake that felt like an evaluation. Quite a leap from wherever you were before, he said. Lena met his gaze. It is. I'm grateful for the chance. His smile was thin. We'll see how long gratitude lasts. He left without waiting for her reply. Tonal shift. Welcome turning to quiet tension. Arthur approached, eyes searching hers. Don't let him unsettle you. Gregory measures worth in numbers. He'll learn there are other currencies. Lena nodded, though unease lingered like a shadow at the edge of light. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Emails, calls, introductions, the hum of a world built on constant motion. But beneath it all ran a thread of something deeper, the weight of expectation, the pull of destiny she hadn't chosen but now carried. By evening, the office emptied. The city below glowed with scattered gold, lights shimmering against dark water. Arthur stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back. You did well today, he said. Lena joined him, watching the skyline. It feels bigger than me. It should, he said. Anything worth doing should feel that way. They stood in silence, the city breathing beneath them. Then Arthur turned, his gaze steady. There's a dinner tomorrow with the board and our partners. I'd like you to attend. Her heart fluttered. Me? Yes. It's time they see what I see. She hesitated. I don't have anything suitable to wear. Arthur smiled faintly. That's easily solved. Evelyn will help you tomorrow. The moment hung between them, an invitation and a test. Lena felt the stirrings of both excitement and fear. The world she had once watched from the outside was opening, but its light cast long shadows. As she left the office, the glass doors whispered shut behind her, sealing in the day's revelations. Outside, the night air was cool, the river whispering below the bridge. She clutched the notebook to her chest, its words echoing in her mind. Observe, listen, learn. And beneath it, unspoken but certain, be ready. The city lights shimmered like distant stars, each one a possibility, each one a cost. Lena walked into the darkness, unaware that the dinner ahead would draw her into currents far deeper than gratitude or duty. Somewhere, in offices and corners she hadn't yet seen, eyes were turning toward her, calculating, curious, waiting. And though she couldn't yet name it, the first test had already begun. Morning sunlight spilled across the small kitchen table, illuminating the unopened envelope lying beside Lena's coffee cup. Inside it was her first official paycheck from Hayes Industries. The sum was more than she used to make in 3 months, yet it felt strangely heavy, as if tied to an invisible weight she couldn't quite name. Maya stared at the envelope, then at her sister. You did it, she said softly, wonder mixing with pride. Lena smiled, though the gesture felt fragile. It's a start. You deserve this, Maya said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. All those nights you came home from work too tired to eat. This is what it was for. Lena wanted to believe that, but beneath the surface of pride stirred unease. She thought of Gregory's cold smile at the boardroom door, the way some eyes had measured her, not met her. Still, she straightened her shoulders. Tonight's dinner would be another test, one she couldn't afford to fail. By late afternoon, Evelyn arrived at Lena's apartment with a garment bag and a box of silver heels. "Mr. Hayes insisted," she said, her tone both brisk and kind. "He wants you to feel confident tonight." Lena unzipped the bag. Inside was a deep emerald dress, simple but elegant, the fabric soft as river water beneath her fingers. She ran her hand across it, stunned by its quiet beauty. "I've never worn anything like this," she whispered. Evelyn smiled faintly. "Then it's time." Tonal shift, anticipation rising through humility. By evening, Lena stood before the grand entrance of the Rutherford Club, where the dinner was being held. The building's marble pillars gleamed under gold light, and inside, chandeliers glowed like constellations suspended above polished floors. A valet opened the door with a courteous nod. For a moment, Lena hesitated, an echo of the girl who once walked home counting change in her pockets. Then she stepped forward. Arthur was waiting near the foyer, dressed in a charcoal suit, cane in hand, though he didn't lean on it. His eyes warmed when he saw her. "Perfect," he said simply. "You belong here." The words steadied her. The main hall shimmered with wealth, crystal glasses, quiet laughter, the subtle rustle of silk and tailored suits. Arthur guided her through the room, introducing her to faces whose names she'd only seen in headlines. "This is Lena Carter," he said to each. "She's recently joined my office." Some offered genuine smiles, others polite nods. Gregory Miles gave only a thin acknowledgement, his gaze unreadable. At the long table, Lena was seated beside Arthur, directly across from Gregory. The dinner began with easy conversation, company milestones, foundation work, cautious talk of market forecasts. Lena listened more than she spoke, noting how each voice revealed its owner's nature, ambition wrapped in courtesy, curiosity masked by charm. Midway through the meal, Arthur set down his glass. "I want to share something," he said, voice carrying through the quiet. "A reminder that success isn't only measured in profit." He turned slightly toward Lena. "A few weeks ago, I was given a second chance, because someone chose compassion over convenience. Lena's choice reminded me why this company exists: to build, to serve, to honor integrity." The room fell still. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. A flush rose to her cheeks, but she held Arthur's gaze, steady and grateful. Across the table, Gregory's expression shifted. Interest, then calculation. He lifted his glass. "A noble story," he said, "but compassion doesn't always close a quarter." A few quiet chuckles followed. Arthur's eyes cooled. "Without compassion, there is no quarter worth closing." Tonal shift, admiration, tilting into tension. The conversation drifted forward, but a subtle current had changed. Lena could feel it, the undercurrent of skepticism from some, curiosity from others. Later, as dessert was cleared, Gregory leaned toward her. "Tell me, Ms. Carter," he said smoothly, "before Hayes Industries, where did you work?" "Two places," Lena answered evenly. "A diner in Riverbend and a cleaning service at night." A pause. A flicker of surprise from nearby guests. Gregory smiled faintly. "Quite the leap." Arthur's voice cut through the murmur. "Which is precisely the point. Talent isn't confined to titles." Gregory inclined his head, though his eyes lingered on Lena a moment longer than comfort allowed. After dinner, as guests mingled with coffee and quiet music, Arthur stepped aside to speak with a group of investors. Evelyn approached, offering Lena a reassuring smile. "You did well," she said. "You carried yourself with grace." Lena nodded, but her heart beat faster. She'd sensed the judgment beneath some polite smiles, the unspoken question, why her? When the evening finally ended, Arthur joined her by the entrance. "How did it feel?" he asked. "Strange," she admitted, "like I was walking through someone else's story." He studied her face, thoughtful. "It's yours now. Don't shrink from it." Outside, night draped the city in velvet shadow. As they waited for the car, a voice called from behind. "Mr. Hayes?" Gregory approached, hands in his pockets, eyes sharp. "A moment?" Arthur nodded, stepping aside. Their voices lowered, indistinct. Lena caught fragments: strategy, image, foundation budget. Then Arthur's tone shifted, firm, final. "Enough, Gregory. We're done here." Gregory's jaw tightened. He glanced at Lena before walking away, his expression unreadable. Arthur returned, the lines around his mouth deepened. "He's ambitious," he said quietly, "but ambition without empathy corrodes." They rode back in silence. Streetlights flashed across the car windows like slow-moving stars. Lena watched the reflections, her thoughts restless. Inside her purse, the small notebook rested, its first page a promise. Observe, listen, learn. Tonight, she had seen more than words. She had glimpsed the quiet war beneath polished manners. Back in her apartment, Lena slipped off the emerald dress and folded it carefully, as though it carried the memory of the evening within its seams. Maya stirred from the couch, blinking sleepily. "How was it?" Lena hesitated, then smiled. "Beautiful. Complicated." She lay awake long after the lights dimmed, replaying Arthur's words, Gregory's stare, the shifting glances of the board. Something was stirring beneath the surface, an unseen tension, a fault line waiting to crack. As the city's hum softened into midnight silence, Lena turned the page of her notebook and wrote a single line beneath Arthur's advice. "Trust is a currency. Spend it carefully." Her pen hovered, then stopped. She closed the notebook, eyes fixed on the ceiling where faint moonlight traced a silver path. Change was coming. She could feel it. But whether it would lift her or test her to breaking, she could not yet tell. The office was still when Lena arrived the next morning, sunlight spilling in pale streaks across the polished floor. The city below hummed awake, but up here, the world felt suspended, waiting. She hung her coat by the door and crossed to her desk outside Arthur's office, the hum of the building settling around her like a pulse. Her notebook lay open beside the computer, its first page still marked with the words she'd written the night before. "Trust is a currency. Spend it carefully." A quiet knock came from behind. Evelyn appeared, holding a small stack of folders. "Morning. The board wants revised projections by noon. Arthur's asked you to organize his notes." Lena took the folders, their edges stiff and new. "Thank you." Evelyn lingered. "And Lena, not everyone here likes change. Don't let their doubts steer you." "I'll try." "You'll do more than try," Evelyn said, eyes softening. "You'll learn to see what others miss." When she left, Lena exhaled slowly and opened the first folder. Graphs, reports, forecasts, all a language she was still learning. But patterns began to emerge, subtle inconsistencies in the margins, numbers that didn't align. Her brows knit. She checked another file. The same anomaly, small but deliberate. Before she could dig deeper, Arthur's door opened. He stepped out, tie loosened, a faint shadow under his eyes. "You're early," he said. "So are you." He smiled faintly. "Old habits." Trouble sleeping when there's too much on my mind. She hesitated, then showed him the folder. These figures. Something feels off. Arthur took it, scanning the pages. His expression tightened. Gregory handles this department. You think it's a mistake? Arthur closed the folder slowly. I think we need to ask the right questions. Tonal shift. Calm giving way to suspicion. He motioned for her to follow into his office. The morning light fell across the desk in slanted bars, cutting shadows through the room. Sit, he said, lowering himself into the chair opposite. You've been here only days, and already you're seeing things others ignore. That's good. Dangerous, but good. Should I bring it up with Gregory? Not yet. Arthur's voice softened. This company is full of people who mistake silence for safety. You must learn when to speak and when to watch. She nodded slowly, feeling the weight of his words settle like a stone in her chest. Arthur leaned back, eyes distant. There was a time I built everything with my own hands. I trusted the work more than the people around it. Somewhere along the way, that changed. Profit grew louder than purpose. Can it be fixed? She asked. His gaze returned to her, sharp again. That depends on who's willing to fight for it. The rest of the morning unfolded in quiet tension. Lena filed reports, answered calls, shadowed Arthur through meetings. Yet her thoughts kept circling back to the numbers, those small, deliberate discrepancies whispering of something hidden. By late afternoon, Gregory appeared at her desk, his suit immaculate, his smile cold. Settling in? He asked. Doing my best. I heard you've been reviewing projections. She met his gaze carefully. Just organizing notes for Mr. Hayes. Gregory nodded, leaning slightly closer. Arthur has a habit of trusting too quickly. Be careful not to overstep. Lena felt the chill beneath his words. I only do what he asks. Good, Gregory said softly. Let's keep it that way. He walked off, leaving the faint scent of cologne and warning behind. Tonal shift, tension tightening into quiet defiance. That evening, after the office emptied, Lena remained at her desk. The city outside glowed with dusk, windows flickering like scattered stars. She opened the files again, tracing the figures with her finger, searching for the pattern beneath the surface. Each discrepancy led to a department under Gregory's oversight. Each adjustment, small enough to escape casual notice, tilted the profits subtly in one direction. Her stomach knotted. This wasn't an error. It was intention. She copied the data into her notebook, marking the anomalies in red ink. Then she slipped the pages into her bag, the weight of them heavier than paper. Arthur's door opened. He paused in the doorway, studying her. Still here? Just finishing up. He nodded. Good. Integrity doesn't keep office hours. As he turned to leave, she hesitated. Arthur, if you discovered something wrong in your company, something hidden, would you confront it? His eyes held hers for a long moment. Truth is never gentle, Lena, but it's always necessary. Then he left, the echo of his cane fading down the hall. Lena sat back, heart pounding. Truth. Necessary, but dangerous. At home, Maya was waiting with 2 cups of tea, textbooks scattered across the table. You're late again, she said, mock stern. Big day? Lena set down her bag carefully. Just busy. Maya studied her face. You look like you're carrying something. Lena forced a small smile. Maybe I am. She didn't tell her about the numbers, the cold smile in Gregory's eyes, or the feeling that the ground beneath this glittering world might not be solid. She only said, some things aren't what they seem. Maya reached across the table, squeezing her hand. Then make them better. tonal shift, weariness to quiet resolve. Later that night, long after Maya had gone to bed, Lena sat by the window, the city glowing beyond the glass. She opened her notebook again, studying the red markings under the lamp's soft light. Each line told a story, one of manipulation, quiet greed, hidden behind polished presentations. If she showed Arthur, he'd believe her. But if she was wrong, if Gregory discovered her suspicion, everything could crumble before it began. She turned the page, writing slowly, deliberately. Sometimes the fight for truth begins in silence. Her pen paused. A sound, soft, deliberate, echoed outside her apartment door. A shuffle, then stillness. She rose, heart racing, moving quietly across the floor. Through the peephole, only shadows. No movement. But on the floor beneath the door lay an envelope, plain and unmarked. Lena crouched, fingers trembling as she picked it up. Inside, no letter, no signature, only a single photograph. Arthur, years younger, shaking hands with a man she didn't recognize. In the corner, faint numbers printed like a code, a date, a location, and beneath them, a single handwritten word: remember. The air thickened, heavy with unspoken meaning. Lena stared at the photograph, pulse hammering. Someone knew. Someone was watching. She closed the envelope, clutching it to her chest. Outside, the city whispered with secrets. And for the first time, Lena realized that the path she'd stepped onto, the one built from kindness, was leading her toward something far more dangerous than gratitude. The lights of Hayes Industries glimmered in the distance, cold and bright against the dark. Whatever waited there, it had already begun. The photograph lay on the table, edges curled beneath the lamplight. Lena hadn't slept. She'd spent the night staring at it, turning it over and back again, searching for meaning in the grain of its faded ink. Arthur Hayes, 20 years younger, shaking hands with a man whose eyes seemed both familiar and wrong, something sharp behind the smile. The date printed at the bottom, April 12th, 2004. The word beneath it, scrawled in black ink, remember. But remember what? By morning, Lena's nerves were raw. Every sound in the apartment seemed amplified, the hiss of the kettle, the scrape of Maya's chair. "You okay?" Maya asked, watching her sister's pale face. "Just tired," Lena said softly. She tucked the photograph back into the envelope, slipped it into her bag. "There's a lot going on at work." Maya frowned. "You've been different since that dinner. Is something wrong?" Lena forced a small smile. "Nothing I can't handle." But as she walked to the bus stop, the weight of the envelope pressed against her ribs like a secret trying to speak. The city morning buzzed with indifferent energy, horns, footsteps, 1,000 voices colliding. Yet Lena felt detached, moving through a world slightly askew. Every reflection seemed to watch her. Every shadow felt deliberate. At Hayes Industries, Evelyn greeted her with a quiet nod. "Arthur's in early. He asked for you." Lena stepped into his office. The blinds were half drawn, cutting the light into narrow bands that striped the carpet like bars. Arthur stood by the window, shoulders tense, a folder open in his hands. "Morning," he said without turning. "Morning." He faced her, eyes shadowed. "I've been reviewing the numbers you flagged." Her heart skipped. "And?" "You were right." His voice was calm, but beneath it ran a thread of steel. Adjustments in 3 divisions, subtle, consistent, all under Gregory's authority. Lena's pulse quickened. "Do you think he's hiding something?" Arthur closed the folder. "I think we're standing on fault lines. The question is how deep they run." She hesitated, then reached into her bag. "There's something else." She placed the envelope on his desk, sliding the photograph out carefully. Arthur's gaze fell on the image and froze. His fingers tightened around the edge. Color drained from his face. "Where did you get this?" "It was left at my apartment last night. No note. Just this." Arthur's jaw tightened. He sank into his chair, eyes fixed on the photograph as though it were a ghost. "Arthur?" she asked gently. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quiet, far away. "This was taken the day I signed the Meridian contract. The man beside me is Charles Weaver, my partner at the time." Lena frowned. "Partner?" "Yes. We built the company together. But months after this photo, he vanished from the records, walked away, or so I believed." "And the word?" Arthur studied it, expression unreadable. "It's not a warning. It's a summons." Tonal shift, unease deepening into revelation. He looked up, eyes hardening. "Lena, whoever left this knows things I thought were buried. You need to be careful." She nodded, though the warning only sharpened her resolve. Later, as she sorted through more reports, Gregory appeared at her desk again. His tone was smooth, but his eyes flickered toward Arthur's office. "You've been busy," he said. "I hope you're finding the transition manageable." "I'm learning a lot," Lena replied evenly. He smiled thinly. "Just remember, this company thrives on order. Disturb the wrong balance, and everything collapses." Before she could respond, he turned and walked away, his reflection gliding past the glass walls like a shadow detached from light. Evelyn appeared moments later, voice low. "Watch him. Gregory plays a long game." "I think he's already playing it," Lena murmured. By noon, Arthur called her back in. "We need answers," he said. "But if we confront him now, he'll bury whatever he's hiding. We have to be patient." Lena hesitated. "And if waiting gives him more time?" Arthur's gaze softened. "Then we outthink him." He handed her a sealed file. "Take this home. Review it tonight. Quietly. No one else can see it." She slipped the file into her bag beside the envelope, the weight of both pulling at her shoulder like the gravity of a secret. Tonal shift, resolve layered with quiet danger. That evening, the sky over the city burned copper and violet as Lena stepped off the bus. The streets glowed with neon and late sunlight, a world alive yet indifferent. She walked quickly, scanning her surroundings. A figure across the street lingered too long beneath a street lamp before turning away. A reflection in a shop window seemed to mirror her steps. By the time she reached her building, her breath came faster, the back of her neck prickling with unease. Inside, the apartment was silent. Maya wasn't home yet. Lena locked the door, drew the curtains, and spread the file across the table. Inside, financial reports, old correspondence, handwritten notes bearing Charles Weaver's initials, and tucked at the bottom, a faded newspaper clipping. Meridian co-founder dies in car accident, 2006. But the photo beside the headline was the same man from the envelope, alive, shaking hands with Arthur. Her stomach tightened. The death report was dated 2 years after the photograph. But if he'd died, who left the photo? A sound from the hallway, soft, deliberate. Lena froze. Another step. A faint shadow beneath the door. She reached for her phone. No signal. The doorknob turned. Once. Twice. Then silence. Her heart pounded against her ribs. Minutes passed before the footsteps receded. Lena exhaled, shaking. She gathered the papers, shoved them back into the envelope, and pressed her back against the wall. Outside, the city lights glimmered like distant stars, untouchable, cold. She stared at the photograph again, at the smiling faces and the word beneath them. Remember. Someone wanted the past uncovered. But in a world built on power and secrets, Remembering might be the most dangerous act of all. She closed her eyes, gripping the envelope tight. Tomorrow, she'd decide whether to show Arthur what else she'd found, or keep it hidden until she knew who to trust. Either way, the balance had shifted. And somewhere in the city's maze, eyes were watching, waiting for her next move. Morning came gray and restless. Clouds pressed low over the city like a warning. Lena walked to the office with the envelope clutched beneath her coat, each step measured, her eyes scanning the streets. She'd barely slept. The image of the photograph, the sound of footsteps outside her door, the locked knob turning, all haunted the edges of her thoughts. Hayes Industries loomed ahead, its glass facade reflecting the storm clouds gathering above. Inside, the lobby's brightness felt false, a fragile veneer over something trembling beneath. Evelyn met her at the elevator, eyes sharp. "You look pale." "Rough night." "Arthur's waiting." The top floor felt different today, tense, hushed. Gregory's office door was closed, blinds drawn. A low murmur of voices carried through the hall, urgent and clipped. Arthur stood by the window when Lena entered, the photograph already spread across his desk. He didn't ask how she slept. "I've been thinking about this," he said quietly, "and about the file you found. There's truth buried here, Lena, but it won't come gently." "What was Meridian?" she asked. He sighed, eyes on the skyline. "A joint venture. Charles Weaver and I built it as a foundation, part profit, part philanthropy. But when the markets shifted, he wanted shortcuts, quiet deals, hidden accounts. I refused. Months later, the partnership dissolved. I thought that was the end. But it wasn't." Arthur shook his head. "No. Someone kept the shadow alive. Gregory was hired soon after. He came recommended by people tied to Charles. I never questioned it." Lena's stomach tightened. "He's still working for them." "Maybe," Arthur said. "Or maybe he's working for himself." A knock at the door. Gregory stepped in, composed as ever. "Arthur." "Lena." His eyes flicked to the photograph on the desk, then back to Arthur. "I heard there were concerns about our financial reports." Arthur gestured toward a chair. "Sit." Gregory didn't. "Before this becomes an inquisition, perhaps we should be clear. You've built a legacy, Arthur. But legacies don't survive on nostalgia. They survive on numbers." "Numbers that lie?" Lena asked softly. Gregory's eyes narrowed. "Be careful, Ms. Carter. You've been here a week." "And I've already seen more than you wanted me to," she said. Tonal shift, calm breaking into confrontation. Arthur's voice was low, controlled. "If there's something I need to know, tell me now." Gregory smiled without warmth. "You want the truth? You built this company on ideals. I built it into what it is. The world doesn't reward kindness. It consumes it. I simply gave the board what they expected. By hiding profits? By ensuring survival." He turned to Lena. "You think you saved him that day at the station? You only delayed the inevitable. Men like Arthur don't last in this world anymore." Arthur rose slowly, leaning on the desk. "Then let me fall on my own terms." For a moment, silence hung heavy as the storm beyond the glass. Then Gregory's smile faded. "Be careful what doors you open." He turned and walked out, the sound of his footsteps echoing like a warning down the corridor. Lena exhaled shakily. "He's not afraid." "No," Arthur said softly. "Which means he's already made his move." Outside, thunder rolled, low and distant. That afternoon, a board meeting was called, unannounced, urgent. Evelyn whispered that Gregory had requested it, citing financial irregularities. Lena followed Arthur into the conference room, heart pounding. The directors sat in a semicircle of polished wood and steel, faces taut with expectation. Gregory stood at the head of the table, a file in hand. "Arthur Hayes has authorized expenditures through unsanctioned channels," Gregory began smoothly. "Donations, grants, foundations, none approved by this board. In light of recent losses, we must ask whether his leadership still serves the company's best interests." A ripple of murmurs. Arthur didn't flinch. "Everything I've done is documented. Transparent." Gregory opened a folder. "Not all of it." He slid forward a sheet, photocopies of old letters, partial records twisted to imply deceit. Lena stepped forward. "Those aren't complete." Gregory's gaze sharpened. "And you would know?" "Yes," she said clearly, her voice cutting through the murmur. "Because I found what you left out." She placed the envelope on the table, spreading out the real records, numbers aligned, correspondence intact, proof of Gregory's quiet diversions. And the photograph. Gasps rippled through the room. Arthur spoke quietly. "You hid profits in shadow accounts. You used my name to cover your trail." Gregory's mask slipped for the first time. "You think they care?" He swept a hand toward the board. "They care about growth, not ghosts." One director stood. "We care about trust." The room shifted. Power moved, subtle, unmistakable. Gregory's eyes burned into Lena's. "You think you've won, but you've made enemies you don't understand." He turned and walked out, the door slamming behind him. Tonal shift, danger yielding to quiet triumph. The board dissolved into murmurs. Arthur remained still, eyes on Lena. "You chose truth." "I chose what's right." He smiled faintly. "That's the harder path." By evening, Gregory's office was sealed, his accounts under audit. Evelyn passed Lena in the hall with a look of awe. "You did it," she whispered. But Lena didn't feel victorious. In the quiet of Arthur's office, as the rain streaked down the glass, she stared at the city lights, brilliant, indifferent. Arthur joined her, standing beside the window. "You've changed more than this company," he said. "You've reminded me what it was meant to be." She turned to him. "What now?" "Now we rebuild, with honesty, with purpose." He glanced toward the photograph, now resting on the shelf behind his desk. "And we remember." Tonal shift, resolution deepening into reflection. Later that night, Lena walked home through streets slick with rain. The city pulsed around her, louder now, alive. She thought of where she'd started, the station, the missed train, the choice that had cost her everything and given her more than she'd dared dream. Kindness had brought her here. Truth had kept her standing. At her door, she paused, looking back toward the skyline where Hayes Industries rose like a lighthouse in the storm. For the first time, she didn't feel small beneath it. She unlocked the door, stepping into the quiet warmth of home. Maya looked up from her books, eyes bright. "You're safe," she said. Lena smiled softly. "For now." She set her bag down, pulling out the notebook, turning to a fresh page. In careful ink, she wrote, "Strength is not in silence, but in the courage to speak. Kindness is not weakness, but a seed that changes the world." She closed the notebook, the rain soft against the windows. Outside, thunder faded, and in its wake came stillness, tense, waiting, full of possibility. Lena stood in the quiet, no longer invisible, no longer uncertain. The storm had passed, but the horizon still whispered with unfinished echoes, and somewhere beyond it, another train waited,